We're starting to broadcast this live stuff. We're going to be broadcasting our stuff today. Just as a precaution, I'm going to also start recording on my regular thing that I normally do. And it's COMP397. It's web game programming. It's week 9, lesson 9, part 1. And what we're talking about here today is there's a couple things I want to cover with you guys. One thing I'd like to cover is what I've done is I've shared the final project information up on eCentennial. So if you want to take a look there, I'll go to 397 for a second. Is it going? So if you want to take a look at the final project, it's up online here. I want to share it with you early. Normally I share it with you on week 10, like next week. But I like to share with you early only because I think the challenge is that when you get it late, you don't know what's coming, and you don't know how to plan, and then you're going to have several other things come up all at the same time, which I think it can be quite negative. Okay, so let's take a look at this. If you look up here, or if you want to follow along with, if you go on eCentennial, you can grab it. It looks like this. It's worth 30% of your grade. Okay, it's due Friday, August 14th at midnight, right? So it's the last day of classes that we have here at Centennial, right? So that's when it's due. Although your class is on Tuesday, right? Our classes are on Tuesdays. This thing will be due Friday, so the final version of it will be due Friday. Doesn't mean that I don't want you to be ready for Tuesday. Really what I want you to do is there's two parts to this thing. This is worth 30. There's a presentation that's also going to be, that I've also shared. Let me just take a look at that up online. So there's two actual assignments. Here's your final presentation. Now, if you notice, the final presentation is due August 11th, right? Before your final project is due. And the reason for that is I want you to have a chance to get some feedback from your colleagues or your classmates here, and they can give some feedback on your project and say, and so will I. Now you'll be doing it in groups, right? This is a group project, right? If you don't want to do it in groups, you want to do it alone, you can certainly do that as well. I don't recommend it, however. I think there's a lot of work here to be done on this final project. It can be quite complex, but let's take a look at this. So there's one piece that's this, presentation piece, and it's got to be ready by August 11th. That means your final project should be pretty much ready by August 11th. Right? Even though it says August 14th is the final deadline, right? So this is one of the challenges we're going to have here. How do we do this August 14th stuff? Get it done by August 14th, but then be ready for the presentation August 11th. So what is this presentation I'm talking to? I say either alone or as a team of 2, right? Typically that's all this project will allow, only because a team of 3, really, I can't see what they're going to do together. You will create an original 2D arcade game. When I say original, all right, I don't mean like, groundbreaking that you're going to sell, on Steam. Okay, we're not going to do that. It's not about that, or you're not going to sell it on the App Store, right? It's not about that kind of originality. I'm talking about it's yours. You've scripted it. You're not stealing the code from somewhere else. You're not borrowing it from a Google code somewhere. You're not borrowing it from a friend from last semester, or from another class, some other place. This is your stuff, right? You and your partner. The game can be a scrolling game, platform game, tower defense, 3/4 down adventure, other classic arcade game. Puzzle games, I say, will not be accepted. The reason why I'm saying that is, I would say they're highly discouraged, only because you're going to write yourself into a black hole, right? Like, it's really hard to do a puzzle game. There's a lot of piece parts to it. It's not just the mechanic of getting the graphics out there, it's understanding the logic behind the puzzle game, and we just don't have time. It's not because I don't want you to do it, or I don't think it's a great thing to do. There's lots of really cool puzzle games out there that make for a lot of fun, but in this time frame, we don't have a lot of time, right? That's why I'm recommending, please, highly, don't even try a puzzle game. It's not going to happen. The game must have a start screen, a main game screen, and a game end screen. A scoring system, almost exactly like assignment 3, right? Assignment 3, you already have this kind of structure, right? I'm just extending what we've got from assignment 3. The game will include at least 3 difficulty levels, right? You must use your own graphic and sound assets. You may choose a web API such as Create.js, which is what we've been talking about. But let's say, for example, you don't want to use Create.js, you want to use 3JS, or you want to use, I don't know, something else like Phaser or something. I'm good with that, right? I won't be teaching that, but if you really want to use these other frameworks, you can. And here's an important note. Please keep in mind that the final presentation, which I already mentioned, which would be used in place of a final exam, there's no final exam in this course, right, is worth 10% of your final mark. That means like these 2 things combined, this is 30, the other thing is 10, right, is worth 40% of your final grade, right? That's huge, right? So please don't like not do this. This would be a bad thing not to do, right? And please don't cheat on this thing. This will basically fail you if you cheat, right? So, and I'm pretty good at catching people, like I said before. I don't like to do that. I don't like to go into that conversation, but it happens every semester. Every semester, I catch people, report them to the dean, all that kind of stuff. It's bad, right? There's no need for that. There's a lot of information. You can do things on your own, and I don't know why people try and do that when it comes to web. It's like, I know that the web is pervasive and you can find code everywhere, and that's great from an example perspective. But if it's not your own code, you need to let me know, or else I won't accept it, and you'll get 0. Okay, so let's go to the next piece, which is how the mark breaks down. So again, start screen, gameplay screen, and a game end screen. Player control of an avatar, just like we did in assignment 3, vehicle, character, whatever you want. The player's avatar may have weapons or other devices that can be used to defeat the computer-controlled enemies this time. A computer control of, or AI of the enemies should be abundant enough to challenge the player, but not impossible to defeat. The game will have 3 levels of difficulty. Example of this would be easy, medium, hard, or easy, normal, extreme, whatever you want to call it. Several game level screens. So let's say you have level 1, level 2, level 3, whatever. Or increasingly challenging computer AI. Here's what I don't want you to do. Do not simply make the game faster. That would be bad. Right? Like if you just make the game, same game, but just turn on the speed, like change the frame rate or something crazy like that, or reduce or increase the way the enemies move just faster, like instead of 5 pixels, they move 10 pixels, that would be bad, right? It's not a fun game. It's got to be fun for you. If it's not fun for you, don't make it, right? I don't want to see the same thing. How about this? If it's unfun for you, it's going to be really unfun for me because I'm going to be looking at a bunch of them, right? That would be bad. Random opportunities to generate points by the player, aside from killing the enemies, right, or avoiding them. That would be something to do. Like example, some kind of coin to pick up, or treasure, or fuel, whatever. You can be creative there. A scoring system, and some kind of, the player has to have a life counter, health status, just like we did before. Sound effects for collisions and enemies, collecting points, shooting attacks, all that kind of stuff. And a game soundtrack should be included. I want to hear a game soundtrack this time around. So very similar to assignment 3, except with 3 levels. So here's something. Some people always ask me, hey, I've got assignment 3, and it is my kind of original game. I did take your mechanic and blah, 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 and added it on. Could I use assignment 3 and make another 2 levels, right? That would be the question. And the answer is yeah, you could. But you're going to work with somebody else. So if you have assignment 3 and they have assignment 3, you got to choose which assignment 3s you're going to base it off of, right? And I'd like to kind of see, kind of equal contribution from both people, right? So if you're going to base it on assignment 3, maybe you can take the best of both worlds. Maybe he likes something from his assignment, the person you're working with, or her assignment, and then, they like something from your assignment, and then you put it together and you come up with your own, side scroll. That's fine. It's perfectly acceptable. And it might save you some time. And that's why I'm giving it to you in week 9, so you can start planning, because you guys aren't quite finished assignment 3, right? Which means there's a good chance that you could think about, how can I make this into my final project, right? So that the stuff you're doing in assignment 3 isn't lost. It's not like I'm saying, well, forget what happened in assignment 3. I don't want you doing any of this anymore, and then do something completely new. Some people, and I had this in the past, the people who are the most successful with this assignment project are the people who actually do create their original content. They actually do stuff of their own. I've seen some really awesome games in the past come out of students. But I know that some people, you know, it's not for them. This is they can't come up with something completely, you know, on their own. The other thing is that, what if you wanted to make a clone of something else? Like, let's say you say, well, Tom, I want to make a Mario clone, or I want to make a, please don't do this, Flappy Bird clone, right? Or whatever. Yeah, okay. I mean, as long as you approve it, throw it by me. I mean, and we can talk about it in class, and I will talk about it with you when you come up with some concepts. Certainly, you can make whatever clone you want to make, right? And part of that is going to be because, you know, you want to be able to, you know, kind of have a direction you're going in. Like, you know, if I just say make a game and you don't know what you're doing, you've never played games before, it's not your thing, but, you know, it's an assignment that you're doing for this course, it might be too difficult. So let's say you want to make a Pac-Man clone, or you want to make an Asteroids clone. Oh, wait, Asteroids. I should talk about that. Please don't make any Asteroids game, because there's a million Asteroids out there. I know that's traditionally, and I kind of led to this, traditionally where people steal the code, right? They go and they see an Asteroids game that's out there that they really like, and they go, hey, Asteroids. And this is really cool. It's made with HTML5, and I can steal the code and fool Tom and hand this in, this final project, because, you know, there's tons of Asteroid games out there. Please don't pick Asteroids. It's like the most copied game that there is. Not because I don't want to limit you or whatever, but you know, I'm just telling you, it's very hard to make your original one if you don't know what you're doing. If you're going to make something like an Asteroids type game, like where you have that kind of mechanic, please run it by me. Show me what you're doing. The best thing you can do if you're unsure if this is going to be working for you, or if you're going to get in trouble or whatever, if you're looking at somebody else's code as an example, is run it by me, right? Keep me in the loop. If you don't include me and then I find out last minute that your code is something that comes from somebody else for the most part, again, like I said before, you're going to get 0. Okay. Internal documentation for your program, just as normal, right? So, you know, I want you to internally document again. External documentation, this is something that you and your partner need to do, right? So, I mean, when you make a company logo, it can't just be your logo anymore. It's got to be kind of a combination of you and your partner. Think about like 2 studios getting together to make the game, right? It's, you know, your studio, you're an indie developer, and somebody else. So take those 2 logos and slap them together next to each other and say, presented by these 2 studios, right? These 2 people. Table of contents, version history is normal, all that kind of stuff. Hey, one thing is, I haven't asked you to do it on GitHub, even though the other ones I've asked you to do this. This is the one I say, you know what, I'm not going to tell you to use GitHub. I think it's a great idea to use GitHub, right? Because GitHub will allow you to collaborate with your partners, you know, and we'll talk about how to do that, how to share your project with somebody else, and so on. Here's some optional game features. Include a final boss monster, right? That's pretty standard stuff. Add power-ups to the player's avatar. Example, extra speed, some kind of shield, whatever. Sword, you know, that he or she can add to his or her inventory and use whenever, you know, they choose, right? Add cheat codes, right? So, you know, you add a cheat code like God mode, so you're indestructible, right? That's kind of cool. Create a mini game in a section of the main arcade game. An example of that would be disarming a bomb or picking a lock or something like that, right? Again, very complex. These are challenge scenarios for you guys. If you guys are really good at programming, this is great stuff to do. If you're not great at programming, don't attempt this. This would be like another project within the project, right? Empower the player to gain an NPC, non-player character. Again, very challenging to do. A computer-controlled ally. Make it possible for the player to save or load his game. This is, again, challenging in that, you know, remember, this project is to be served live, right? Just like, you know, you should be serving it live. Your other projects will serve live as well, right? So your slot machine should have been served live. This one, you can use GitHub pages for sure. You can use Student Web if you wanted to use that. As long as you let me know, point to you know, to which server you're looking at, you can certainly do that. Loading and saving, I mean, the only way you can do that with HTML is either using PHP or Node, right? Or ASP.NET, something on the back end, some kind of database that you're going to be using, right? And you need to have a back end. We haven't talked really about back end. This is all front end stuff, right, that we're doing. So this is something you're going to have to research on your own. Definitely another level of challenge for you. How to save your state, like where the game is, and then when you start off again, you start off back, you know, and with the same stats and everything else. That's really hard to do. Definitely an external document is what you need to send. Please MS Word or PDF only. Don't give me Open Document Office or whatever. And a zip archive of your project files or a link to your project on GitHub. Even though I haven't told you to do GitHub, some people may choose to do that, and that's what I prefer, right? Now, some people are nervous about, you know, their GitHub not working, or they're nervous about their site files. So they give me both. They give me, like, you know, files on eCentennial, and then they throw things up on GitHub as well, give me a link. That's all good. And I think it's a good practice to kind of have a backup so I can look at it in two different ways. But your site, your actual game should be live. I should be able to watch this thing, play this thing online. Anyone should be able to play it, you know, that kind of thing. And a bit of a rubric for you for this one. Right? Any questions around the final project that you and a partner will be working on for the end? Again, if you really want to work on this alone, like if you're someone who's totally not into doing this with somebody else, you know, because you're a loner, or you don't, you know what, you don't trust anybody because you think they're going to be dogs and they're going to ride on your good graces, right, and your good coding skills, right? Because let's face it, guys and girls, that's what happens. You have one person that's really strong, the other person's not too strong, and then they partner together because they want to get this done. And you don't want to do that because, you know, you don't want to be slowed down by somebody. You can certainly do that, but again, the challenge is it's a lot of work to do on your own, and that would be, you know, I mean, obviously you're going to bring yourself into a whole other level of work for this one if you did it on your own. It's worth 30% of your final grade. So don't recommend, but however, I would accept it if you really are somebody who doesn't want to work with anybody else. Okay, that's this part. The other part I need to talk about is this final presentation piece. So you got your project done. You know, you're Ali, right? Because he's, you know, he's someone who's always on time with his stuff, right? And then what happens is, right? I'm being facetious again. I'm trying to bug him a little bit, right? But you know, you're done and whatever, and you want to present. Well, there's a couple things that you can do here. And if you notice here, I say, working with a partner or on your own, you will present your final game project. Your presentation should include details contained in your external documents, such as an overview of your game, your planning process, lessons learned, future possibilities, all that stuff. You may use PowerPoint, Keynote, or Prezi, whatever you want to use to present your final project. So there's some platforms you can use, right? And your presentation should be no longer than 10 minutes, like total, from the time you set up to the time you're done, to the time you get feedback. It's got to be quick, right? I don't want you to drone too much about stuff. Your slides should basically really demonstrate your stuff, as well as you do a little demo of your game. That's what I really want to see. So let's say you say, hi, you know, my name is Tom, and this is Ali. He's my partner, right? And we made, you know, space aliens, you know, from the blackest, you know, whatever portions of the universe. Right? That's our game. Really long title, but let's just say we made that, right? And hey, and this is how we started off. When we start talking about our journey, well, we started off, you know, Ali made space aliens, and I made, you know, the creature from the darkest part of the universe, and we kind of combined it to make space aliens, you know, from the darkest part of the universe, kind of thing, right? And this is our journey, kind of thing. So you start talking about your game a little bit, and we ran into a couple of problems. You know, Ali and I were trying to work together. We had a couple of time crunches, a lot of stuff to do at the end of semester. We had to do our exam and so on. You start talking about this stuff, but you know what? Ali's a really good coder. He's better than me, right? I'm really good with graphics, and I like to organize, you know, the files and so on. So we work together. I give him all my other media assets. I give him a little bit of my code too, because I had this really cool shooting piece of my code that worked for from assignment 3. So he used that to create the bullets that we use in the game. And but meanwhile, his mechanic, especially the side scrolling, he does parallax scrolling. You know, and he's got this great. He had this great mechanic that we use, and this is how we kind of combine to make our game. You know, kind of thing, right? And then you're going to talk about so that's kind of your planning process. We kind of spread this out. We realized this would take about 20 hours to do this project. So, you know, each of us kind of put in about 10 hours each, approximately. I think Ali did a little more work I have to give him a little bit more credit. He did 12 hours, and I did only 8 hours, right, in our project because he's a hard worker. You know, but it worked out that we were able to finish our project on time. Lessons learned, I would say that, you know what, I think we could have started earlier, right? Like on time when Tom gave us the assignment, we could have started on time, right? As opposed to starting like, you know, weeks or a week before the final project due date, because I think we only started a week before. I could have used GitHub a little bit more, right? Because I think GitHub organizes a little bit better. I'm just giving you an example of what my final presentation would look like, right? And then, you know, from a future possibilities perspective, if I was to take this game further, I would see it definitely be, I could convert it to mobile, no problem. You know, maybe even use this as a prototype to take into another program like Unity to create my final project that would be cross-platform. Okay, so here's our game. Here's space aliens from the deepest part of space, whatever, darkest part of space. And we play the game for 10 minutes, or sorry, not even 10 minutes, a few minutes. And then you guys give feedback. You might say something like this. You might say, okay, and by the way, I don't want to hear this kind of stuff. Put up your hand and say, you know, Ali, it sucks, right? I don't want to hear that. That's bad, right? Or Tom, you know what? It's the worst game I've ever seen in my life, right? You say, you know what? I really like this part of your game, but you know what? I think your fonts could be a little bit darker because they're a little bit too light. I can hardly read the stuff here. Would you agree? Yes. Okay, I'm going to change that. And you know what? I think there's a little bit of jitter when it comes to the way your stuff moves across the screen. It's not smooth. It's jittery, right? Maybe if you made it a little bit smoother, then, you know, this would be a good thing as well. And then, you know, as a developer, Ali and I take that back because we have until Friday to get the final masterpiece in, right? We get it done. We work on it, you know, shore up any kind of the issues we have, and we hand it in for Friday. Okay, that's one scenario. Scenario two, because there's a lot of us, right? There's a lot of people in our class, like 30 people, right? That means 15 presentations over a 3-hour period. 15 presentations, 10 minutes presentation, right? That's 150 minutes. That's almost exactly 3 hours. Like we'd have to start and be on like rigid in terms of how we get things done, right? And usually there's 1 or 2 people that want to work on their own, which means it might be more than 15 presentations, right? There's no way in one day I'm going to be able to get all the presentations done, which means as a backup, I'd like you to do a screencast. And what that means is exactly what we're doing here. Because of Ali, we're screencasting on Google Hangouts, right? And we're saving it on YouTube, right? So you've got a recorded video, right? And some people, let's put it out there, in the past, right, have been in a position where they have not been able to do their presentation because, you know what? They're not done. Their game is way behind. And they can't do the presentation, but they still want to get credit for it. And I would allow a screencast for that. So you and your partner get together, exactly what I just did, the same presentation with the PowerPoint slides and all that kind of stuff, but you screencast your presentation, and then I can hear you talking about your game and playing it and all that stuff on my own time, not in front of the class. And some people may also want that because they're not great at presenting, they're not happy, you know, they're not confident by being up here in front of the class and talking about their stuff. It's okay. If you really want to go there, please let me know in advance. We'll be doing a screencast, and I would accept that as well. For the same marks, no loss. Okay? Whew. Okay, that's a lot of detail. Anyone have any questions around these two things? So again, 2 pieces. Final project due last week of class. There's no exam in this class. You need a presentation to do. So between your final project and your presentation, it's 40% of your final mark. Please do not start this thing, you know, in a few weeks from now. Like that would be really bad. Your assignment number 3 is due by the end of this week, right? By the end of Friday. So once it's done, get going on the other stuff, or else you're going to be caught, and you won't probably have enough marks to, you know, if you don't finish your final presentation, your final assignment, you probably won't pass properly, right? It's one of those things that's required because there's a lot of little piece parts, right, that kind of shore up the program requirements for this particular course requirements. All right, any questions? Please put up your hand and ask questions now. As we go forward, I'm going to be talking about the final presentation, and I'll be giving you other little technologies you can use for your final project, right? Because there's a few things you may want to add. You want to add explosions, animations, all those kind of things. We're going to talk about that over the next weeks. So this isn't like the final day I'll be lecturing, right? We'll be talking about other stuff that you can include with your final project. And the other thing that I want to talk about also is that I'll be checking on you, right? So please, next week, I want to see some progress. I want to see who your partners are next week. Who are you working with? What's your concept, right? At least start your design document a little bit. Start your planning process and say, okay, you know what? Here's what our idea is. What do you think, Tom? Right? And I might say something like this. You know what? If it's Ali, right, and me, if we were thinking about doing it, I might say something like this. Well, you know what? I like your idea of making a puzzle game, Ali, but you know what? I don't think it's going to fly. It's too much work within a 4-week period or 5-week period. Please don't make a puzzle game, right? But let's say he said, well, I want to make a game. It's tower defense, right? I want to make a tower defense game, and I want to give some AI and pathfinding in my game, right? And I would say, Ali, you know, I love your idea. It's just too complex within a 4 or 5-week period. It's just seems too crazy to do tower defense. Tower defense is one of the most difficult things, unless you're a strong programmer and you have to do all this pathfinding and all this kind of stuff. It's really hard to do, right? So please don't just come up with something that's insane. Come up with something that's doable within a 4 or 5-week period. And that's it for me for this one. I don't know how to stop broadcasting. Ali, it's all you, man. It's all you. Does it work? Yeah. All right. Can you see my screen pretty clear and stuff like this? The words? Is there a little bit? Is there a delay? How about the words? Can you actually see the font? Is it the font is pretty cool or what?
It is. It's not as cool. But.
Yeah, I know. That's the problem. And I'm wondering if there's some settings we can go into. All right. So I'm going to stop recording. I'm going to figure this out eventually.